Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 10 of Masochists Marathon. We are finally getting on with our first big biter push, and as I ended last episode, this was not planned to be on episode 10, like with Bob's Angels, where every 10 episodes or so, I would do a load of biter slaying. I wasn't really going to try and do that theme this series, but who knows, it may end up ending like that every single time. But we start the episode off just checking the power right at the start. We took a miner out for the copper. I wasn't going to bother filling in the rest of the coal patch, but I do really need to get rid of that before we start using the outpost. We also come and take out these sulfuric acid tanks because, rightly suggested by Sasha in the comments, they really don't need to be there, and they could be holding some sulfuric acid. I did check, and there was only 0.1 in it, but still every little helps towards getting enough batteries for turrets. I have 20 on me now, so that should be good enough. We also show on the map there a little small iron patch down in the southeast that I noticed that may be worth going for before the big one up in the northwest. So we've decided to push out to this iron patch down here in the southwest. It's a very big oil deposit, very lucrative. But just want to say thank you to Sasha and Jason, who both convinced me to go for the oil. I wasn't sure whether to go for oil or iron first, but I was considering oil so that we could do blue science, because with one oil well that would have taken absolutely ages. We would have been sat around waiting. I think I've got enough iron. I did a bit of calculations, which we'll go into in a minute. But yeah, I couldn't decide whether to go for iron or oil. I was sat there ready to go and sit and record, and I was like, I kind of want to have that episode go out before I decide, so I let it go out a couple of hours earlier than usual, and both Sasha and Jason were fairly quick to comment, so I was slightly more confident about pushing out to the oil deposit. So yeah, my tactic is generally to keep stabbing in at bases, then backing up so I don't get too surrounded, because if I dig too much into the Red Sea, I'll have bases on either side of me and the lasers will just get overwhelmed. And plus I only have 20, so yeah, you know, if I had an abundance of laser turrets, I'd be leaving loads out, and I'd probably have loads more power, but I just don't have the luxury of that with the resources that I am playing with. So we start off by taking out those bases just east to the patch, and we have a look at the evolution, which I try and do regularly through the episode so we can keep an eye on where that is. But we're currently at 0.56. I think we started at 0.54, or just on the end of 0.548, I think it was. But yeah, it does start to grow very quickly, which is quite alarming. Also, these trees, very frustrating to push through. They kind of get in the way of placement and also hide stuff that I want to pick back up. But we successfully take out this base as well, but I have to kind of pick away at certain trees to be able to get back at stuff. There's another couple of nests just south of me here as well that I have to keep extending out to. But yeah, this is generally the tactic we keep repeating to take out the base. It's just your standard laser turret creeping, very minimal laser creeping. I'd probably be putting out wider rows if I had more, but we kind of have to burrow in, take out nests, and then retreat as the surrounding bases come and reinforce them, because as you kill nests and whatnot, the surrounding bases come and join in and try and help out their neighbours. So what I thought was enough nests to northwest of the patch, I retreat again, and then we have a look at taking out the last group of nests just sort of southwest of the area. I'm not going to be putting derricks on every single one of these deposits to start with. That would be a bit crazy. Plus, I'd have to clear a much greater area for the amount of pollution it would cause. I'm just going to get enough just to justify a reasonable oil processing area, and enough for us to do blue science. Obviously, once blue science has been set up and running, I can get a better idea of how many derricks we need to keep it running. We'll see what is the shortfall when I actually get that set up. It's probably going to be copper though, because we have no copper outpost set up. We only have the starting patch done, and it's not even fully covered in miners. It can't even saturate a full yellow belt, so that's probably what we're going to be shy on next. But yeah, I want to cause a very small pollution cloud here, as it's pretty much almost completely surrounded by biter nests, spitters and whatnot, and all your lovely worms. But yeah, we are getting a number of big worms in these bases, which the laser turrets do pretty well to deal with, although this is the point where I lose my first laser turret. There's just too many of them for me to keep up with the repair packs, but they eventually overwhelm the incoming hordes. You kind of need enough turrets to deal with the groups coming in to attack, and then enough to then attack nests to slowly bring down the rate of biters and spitters coming at me. I could probably do with putting down more laser turrets at once. I did learn a lot while doing this. The only other time I've really done some serious laser pushing in a game was when I had a personal roboport and substations, and you could just plant down this massive area of laser turrets, and they would just wipe areas out before the next wave could even get to you, before they've taken out the first wave. So we'll just tidy up repairing some laser turrets, and we start with a bit of tree therapy while I have a think. We also have a look at the evolution again. We're at now 0.58. So it's growing very rapidly. It's not long we're going to be on 0.6. And it made it clear that if I'd have tried to push to the iron patch first, then I would push the evolution scale up too high and made the biters too strong for lasers to be able to deal with. And then we would be sat around waiting for absolutely ages for blue science to improve the laser damage. And maybe I wouldn't have got there. I would have been stuck in a stalemate. So to begin with, I was clearing trees manually. Then I realized I had a load of grenades on me from doing the military science. And I thought, why the hell not use them? This is going to take most of the episode if I hadn't. I would normally use them though, because it is a bit of a frivolous use of resources considering the settings that we're playing on. So after a bit of thinking and a bit of tree clearing, I do decide to come and push a few more nests. I decided they were just a tiny bit too close for comfort, and they kind of weirdly interweaved in these trees. Normally the trees would be good enough to absorb the resources, but because I've turned down the tree's ability to absorb pollution and also decreased the amount of damage they take to die, or is it the other way around? I've decreased the amount of damage for them to get destroyed and then decreased the amount of pollution they absorb once they're destroyed. I can't remember how the settings worked. It's been a while since I've set them now. So yeah, I come and decide to push these nests back out here. They do attack pretty relentlessly, but we do get there in the end. Despite the trees getting right in my way, I did use a grenade to place this patch here to get a bit of a foothold through the trees. And then I start to abuse long reach just a little bit. We push down to this little nest here. The tree's getting in the way of me picking stuff up, and I lose my second laser turret, and then I decide to make a retreat. The area's just a little bit too messy. I also noticed during this episode the benefit of the changes to do with damaged items. So before, each item with a different health level would take up a separate slot, but now I think they take an average of the health of all the items and stick them all in a stack together, which is absolutely fantastic because my inventory isn't filling up with a load of damaged laser turrets. And there's no artifacts as well, so I don't need to make sure there's tons of room for a load of candy floss. So the area is pretty much cleared around all the oil deposits. We have a checkup on the evolution, which is at now 0.593, so very close to 0.6 now. I'm not quite sure what happens at 0.6, but there's probably something. And we come have a look at the iron outpost, because there's quite a few depleted miners. Too many for me to ignore, so we add another 2 on the end of each row. Not quite covering the whole deposit yet. We still got a bit on the end there. As of the end of this episode, I think we have around 5,000 iron yet still to be mined in that area. I think that's what I checked it as. I try and check it each episode so we can keep an eye on it. That deposit was at 8,000 when we first tapped it, maybe even 9,000. I wasn't quite sure when we first started. So we've left the new oil area guarded by just a radar, a couple of laser turrets and some standard turrets just in case it does get attacked, but I don't think it will, while we come up and grab the file train so we can bring some track down to the oil area. But me being fussy, I have to have the track running in a certain way, and to appease that need for straight rails, there are a few more bases we have to clear, which will push the evolution over 0.6, but oh well, it makes me happy. So we get file ready, we bring the power forward as much as I dare, and we really abuse long reach at this point to chuck some turrets as close as we can to the bases, because the biters really don't seem that bothered by power poles. It's when you start putting turrets down that they really get pissed off. So I kind of feel like that's a tiny little bit of abuse from the game mechanic, but the closer I can get the turret, the quicker it'll take out the nest before the second wave of biters come and distract the turret from destroying the nest. But there is a compromise with long reach. I am using long reach research, which means it costs precious resources for me to get it, and it's not the full-on long reach. It only gets me so far. So I don't think, even when it's fully researched, I can just jump on the map and grab stuff from right across the map. But I believe I've kind of got most of the nest. There's one more I want to clear out. There's just 2 here that we get rid of, and then I think I'm pretty confident that's enough for the train to come down and run past without antagonizing any biter attacks. I also come and line the rail up very carefully, because too far in I'll go on the stone deposit, too far out and we'll start clashing with the oil wells. And we can't have train tracks running on resources. That's just a big no-no. I also give ghost rails another try, because once you've laid out ghost rails, Fal will come and lay them for you. I also do corners manually because I don't like how Fal does them, but we let Fal run off and do that a little bit. I wish I'd done it all the way, because I didn't realize it was going to kick me out. I think that's the little tick box. It means it'll go and do it without me. I did forget to tick the place power poles option though, so I do have to come and lay that out manually. So the next half of the episode is setting up this oil outpost. Basically, I've cleared enough biters as I think I can to access it. I don't dare clear too many, because this episode made me realize just how aggressive the evolution settings are. I'm really going to be getting behemoth biters really early on. It's going to be quite a struggle, I think. I thought getting this oil patch and the 1.2 million iron patch would be the end of my resource worries, but I'm really not quite sure. I don't know what sort of level of lasers I'm going to need to deal with behemoth biters. So even after getting these 2 patches, I think there's going to still be a chance of stalemate, which isn't great. But that's the fun of the settings I've gone for. You know, I've made my bed, now I've got to lie in it. So anyway, enough ranting on about that. We start laying out the outpost, and we've already run out of track. I do have a bit on me to make a little bit more, just enough to get the station laid out, I believe. But we get it laid out north of here, and then if I ever do actually tap this stone deposit, I don't know if I ever really will need to, but stone has been increased in use with the sciences. It's probably going to go on the bus, or at least bricks will go on the bus. Anyway, we'll have a stone smelting area. I just can't quite remember if we need stone itself on the bus. Anyway, we can deal with that when it comes to it. So I kind of run out of resources in this area. We don't have enough to complete the 4 rail tanker train. So I decide to hop in the train, putting the power back to the radar. Now we've got the rail there, and we head back to the base to pick up some more resources. So I did a bit of calculations, got a few numbers ready, because I wanted to talk about this episode. For some reason, we take the train all the way around to the top of the base, which doesn't really bring us any closer. Anyway, what I wanted to do was just have a look at how much iron we need for the various damage and speed upgrades for lasers. So once I have blue science set up, I can then look at how much iron we've got left and how many upgrades we can do until we've completely run out of iron. And to be honest, so long as I've got enough laser turrets running out of iron isn't actually such a big deal. So I added together all the iron required for red, green, blue and grey science. Also taking into account the fact that military science gives you 2 science packs per cycle, because when I first did this, I completely forgot that, which made quite a bit of difference. So for all the science packs for 1 cycle of the laser turret damage upgrade is 122 pieces of iron. You need 400 cycles for the level 3 damage upgrade and speed upgrade, which comes to 48,800 for each. Double that, that's 97,000. And then the level 4 damage and speed upgrade is basically 800 science packs, so that's basically doubled. So for the level 4 damage and speed added together comes to a total of 195,200 iron for the level 4. So basically, round that all up, that's a total of 300,000 iron for the level 3 and level 4 speed and damage upgrades, which is great. If I had 500,000, I think it was, I said at the patch by the end of this episode, I think 200,000 is more than enough to set up the automation. But one other thing I wanted to consider, and it's pretty much why I've done all these calculations, is if we're doing blue science, then we're going to be getting petroleum out of the refining, but it means that the light and heavy oil is going to be building up massively. So if I can work out if I have enough iron for those upgrades, and then see if I've got enough for cracking as well, because to be able to do cracking for the blue science is going to make a lot of sense. We're not piling up all of those light and heavy, and we can actually turn it all into petroleum and put it all into blue science. So I wanted to work out if once I've set up the automation, can I do all those upgrades and cracking? Because I don't want to go do cracking and then find I can't do all the upgrades. So I'm ready next episode to go and set up the blue science. And once that's all set up, we can look at the factory, wait for it to slow down a little bit so we're not getting our calculations wrong. then so long as we have enough iron to do all our upgrades, we can do cracking first and get all that laid out while doing the damage upgrades themselves. So while I've been rambling on, there's been a few things going on. One thing we do, we stop off here to get rid of this base because it is a bit uncomfortably close for my liking. So we come and clear this out. There is a bottleneck down just south east of me, which I really should fill in. That would be very handy bottleneck right there just to stop bases from sneaking in. While I was rambling on about all that stuff, about the damage upgrades and how much iron it would cost, I did try and set up a new, or finish off the oil unloading area, and I just didn't quite like it. I decided at the end of the episode, once I've sorted the outpost out, I am going to lay the proper depot out, but we'll get into that when it comes to it. So we come and lay the last bits out for oil outpost 1, and I lay the pumps out for a liquid balancer, and I would appreciate some feedback on this because it should kind of work so long as the values are correct, but it is kind of designed to make sure all 4 wagons get filled up equally. I know it's not a massive problem because it all ends up in the same storage anyway. It's just nice to have all the tanks fill up equally, but is there really any point in having it, and will it actually work? One thing we need to do it is the circuit network, which I haven't researched yet, but I do decide to research it in a minute just so that I can get this up and running, because I couldn't really bear to see it filling up 3 tanks and then not the third one, which was a bit odd. So I go in to research, and we research circuit network so I can put in the circuit wire, and I stick in a couple of laser turrets as well, just in case this area does induce any attacks while we're away. I don't want to lose any resources whatsoever down to attacks. We have a quick look on the map at the value of this area, and it is 8,227%. So that's one of the great things about the changes in 0.15, where you can look at the resources on the map. And it also allowed me to make those calculations earlier. I could see how much iron left we have access to. I could work out how much iron we need for certain researches, and I could make sure that I'm not doing something that I can't really afford to do. So yeah, that wouldn't really be possible without that new 0.15 change. Maybe it is by putting a load of miners out, but you'd sit there writing a lot of numbers down for a while. So we finish off circuit networks, but I get a bit confused or a bit fussy with these pipes and undergrounds and electric poles, because it fits perfectly there, but the pipe's in the way. So I stick in the circuit network, and we stick in a greater than value so that all 4 pumps will activate at the same time. We just have to get the value right so they all have enough oil to pump. And with the new fuel values being times by 10, is it? I'm not quite sure. I think I used to use 100 or 500, but I set it to 5k now. So that should basically equally distribute the oil to all 4 carriages, but I've never actually properly tested it, so I don't really know if it works. So we head up to the oil depot area to start laying out a proper oil depot. I overshoot the entrance. I don't actually want to go on because we're going to rip all of this out and rebuild it, because I wasn't really happy with what I did before, and to be honest, it was just a temporary build anyway, just to get some batteries for laser turrets. But now we've got a fairly decent oil outpost, we can justify having a proper oil depot. And plus, it also ties in with something I was deliberating at the start of the series that I hadn't really quite decided on when we did set up this area, is where I was going to have my uranium station. I was going to have it down in the depot area with the coal, iron and copper and everything, but then that would have meant piping sulfuric acid halfway across the factory from here, which I didn't really want to do. And then I realized, why would I actually have it there? It didn't make any sense to have it there. So I decided the best place for it is actually to share the oil depot, which then meant I justify building a waiting area, because I do like having these waiting lanes. Plus, I wanted, for some reason, which I can't explain even now, I wanted the oil depot to have horizontal station and waiting area, not vertical. So if for some reason past me starts laying out a vertical waiting area, in actual fact, I want it to be horizontal. And yeah, that's basically the fail of the end of this episode. I try and lay out this area, and then I sit around thinking for ages. Then I realize I want it horizontal, so I end up actually tearing all of this down. I get halfway through that and realize I'm still in the recording. This really isn't a very good ending to the episode. So what I actually decide to do, I do carry on playing now, I tear it down, but what I decide to do is I'm actually going to rebuild this station after the end of the video, because it's going to take me a little while to think about it. I'm going to mess around for a bit, and then I'm going to load the save at the end of the episode. So I'm literally wasting as little time as I can, because obviously the longer I take, the more the biters will evolve from the pollution and time. And I did promise I wouldn't do anything outside of episodes, but this is one thing I'm really quite fussy about. So I'll get that done now. I'll get it all laid out for both an oil unloading depot and the uranium depot. So we're nice and close now to where sulfuric acid is being made, so we're not piping it over ridiculous distances. And my excuse is that it will use less iron. But yeah, I do start trying to lay out the station now, and then I realise it's all just going to fail epically. This still isn't going to work. I start by laying this out as though this is the exit as far as entering the track is concerned, but then I start laying out a waiting area, which is completely wrong. I then realise and start tearing it down. But that's going to be all we have time for this episode. I'm just going to end it here and go and build this station. At the start of next episode, we'll have a look at what I've built. Then we'll lay out the oil processing properly, and we can get blue science done. Once all that's finished, I can work out if we have enough for cracking, as well as the damage upgrades, and then we'll go on from there. And hopefully soon we'll go and clear the biters back past that iron patch. In a second, we do have one last look at evolution. We are now at 0.6, but that's going to be all we have time for. I do hope you have enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and please do come and join me next episode. Bye-bye.